Alright, today we're going to take a look at Lesson 2 in Chapter 4, which is about writing equations in slope-intercept form. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's see. So previously we were graphing lines given the slope and the y-intercept. So today we're going to work on putting those into an equation, even if it's not already in slope-intercept form, if we're only given the points and the slope. So the first thing says, write an equation of a line that passes through this point with this slope. So we're going to use this info and plug this into slope-intercept form. So first step, put your slope in for m. Now we don't have a b value. It'd be a whole lot easier if we did. Since we don't, your job is to plug in the x and the y values given and we'll solve for b. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. So the x value was 2, we're going to plug in a 2, y value is -3, we're plugging in the slope. Solve for b, and then once you get that b value, you already knew the slope, now we have the b, the y-intercept. So we can say here the whole equation is y equals 1/2 x minus 4. So that's our equation. Do you see how there is still a y and an x value there? The letters. Do not plug in numbers. If you plug in numbers for x and y, it's no longer the equation that we're looking for, okay? So this has to have the x and the y letters in there. Your numbers should only be in place of m and b. Okay, you try. Pause right here, see what you can do. When I worked through it here, I plugged in, so I used y equals mx plus b. I plugged in -3 for m. And then it looks like here this is our x and our y value, so I put 1 in for x, 4 in for y, and solved. So when I solved for b, I got 7, which was the y-intercept. Well, we already know d is the correct answer because that's the only one with a 7 there. But just to check, I plugged in the slope and the y-intercept, and then that matches d. Alright, let's do this next one. So write an equation of the line that passes through these 2 points. Now we are not given a slope, but using these points we can find the slope. So this is our equation. I circled it in yellow. Please make sure you have this in your notes. Write this down, okay? So this is very important to write this down. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, alright? So we know these coordinates are always written as x then y, x then y. So the first one would be x1, y1. The second point given would be x2, y2. So what we're going to do is plug those in here. y2 in for this first part. So y2 minus y1 goes here. x2 minus x1 on the bottom. So when we plug all of that in, it looks like our slope ends up being -4. Now, we have enough information to treat this like the last problem, where we had the slope and a point. Well, we have 2 points, but you only need one of them now. So remember that, slope is -4. So moving on to this next step. So we said slope is -4, we're plugging in -4 for m. You need one of the 2 points. Pick your favorite. It doesn't matter which one. In this case, the book chose to use -3, -4. If you choose the other point, you get the same answer. It doesn't matter. So if they plugged in -3, -4, -3 for x, -4 for y, and solve for b. Once they do that, they get their answer for b. You already know m, so use those 2 pieces to write your equation. Y equals -4x minus 16, right? Y equals -4x minus 16. That's your final answer. Alright. So now it's saying, doing the same thing. I'm going to give you guys a second to look at this. If you want to pause it, take a look, but it's the exact same thing as the last problem. So they're doing the same thing, solving for b. Feel free to pause if you want to take a look, practice with this one, but I'm not going to talk through it. Alright, so for this one here, it says here, the table of ordered pairs shows the coordinates of the points on the graph, coordinates of 2 points on the graph of a line. Which equation describes the line? Okay, pause right here, see what you can do. I went ahead and wrote these into coordinate pairs because the example that we did, they were already written as coordinate pairs, they weren't in a table. So I went ahead and put them as coordinate pairs as well. -1, 3, and then 2, 6. See what you can do. When I solved this problem, I did y2, it's going to be this one, y2 minus y1, oops, sorry, y2 minus y1, not the x, y2 minus y1 on top, so 6 minus 3 on top, and then x2 minus x1 on bottom, so 2 minus -1 on bottom. When I worked through that, the slope ended up being 1, so I used that here. Y equals mx plus b, I plugged in a 1 for m, and then I chose one of these 2 points. I prefer to choose the second point here because the first one has a negative, and I don't like dealing with negatives if I have a choice. So I plugged in 2 for x, 6 for y, and solved for b. And then that ended up being this equation here, this one, answer B. Alright, see what you can do for this one. Practice here. Pause right now, see what you can do. When I worked through it, I got D as the answer. So you take a minute to look through my work. Pause again if you need to check my work. I'm going to move on to the next topic. So next we're looking at linear extrapolation, which means making predictions about values beyond the range of data. So maybe they're going to ask us for a value that's not necessarily written into the problem. So this one says, during a year, Malik's cost for self-serve gasoline was $3.20 on the 1st of June, $3.42 on the 1st of July. So we're going to write an equation to predict the cost of gasoline on the 1st of any month, using 1 to represent January. Okay, hold on. 1 represents January, so what would June be? Isn't June the 6th month? So June is 6, July would be 7. So this says here, I'm going to move myself for just a second. This says here, just to kind of get our head in the right place, we're going to write down our coordinate pairs, and they're choosing so 6 for June, and then this is the price. So they wrote 6, comma, the cost in June. And then this one would represent 7, comma, the cost in July, right? So let's see what we can do to solve this problem. Given our 2 points, we can now go ahead and do the slope like we had done before, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. They plugged that in and they got 0.22 for the answer for slope. Now we need the y-intercept, right? So they plugged that in along with the one of the values. It doesn't matter which one, so they chose an x and a y value. It doesn't matter which point you choose, but it's very important you don't choose one of these and then the y value from the other point. You have to stick with one point and the x and y for both. Okay, so once we plug that in, x value, the slope, the y value, solve for b, they got this, and then we can write our equation. And that's just checking it. So pause right here if you want to check your work. Now you try. Pause right here, see what you can do. I'm going to move on and go ahead and talk through this one. So this says cost of a textbook that a teacher uses. It's $57.65 in 2005. And then more books were ordered and the price increased to $68.15. Write a linear equation to estimate the cost. Okay. I think I actually made a mistake in this one. I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to erase this and this. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can rewrite this. So it says here, X represent years since 2005. So I'm going to write the first coordinate pair, 2005. This is the cost in 2005. If we're saying years since then, wouldn't that be a 0? And then 2008 would be, what's that? 2008 would be 5, 6, 7, 8, so 3 years later. So down here, this would be y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Okay, nothing else changes. So then, once we work through the math, I ended up with 3.5 as my slope, and then we would need to choose our Y-intercept. I think the Y-intercept would be the starting price, right? If it cost $57.65 in 2005, that's your starting price. So that means that this would be your Y-intercept. So I chose A for my answer for that. Okay, let's get to that extrapolation that we were talking about. So this was our equation from the previous example from Malik and his gas. So this says here, if he uses 25 gallons per month and he budgets $100 for October, is he going to have enough money? So we're using this and we're saying, okay, October would be month 10, right? So we're plugging in a 10 here, and we're going to say how much would gas cost that month. And it looks like it'd be $4.08. Well, now take $4.08 times 25. What is that value? $4.08 times 25. Well, $4 times 25 is 100, so 408 times 25 is more than 100. So this is saying determine if he will have to add to his budget. And we're going to say, yeah, he is going to have to add to his budget. He doesn't have enough money. So the book worked through it, and they said they've got 102. It will cost $102, so he has to add some money to his budget. Now you try the extrapolation. So with this extrapolation, it's saying here, we're going to go back to the textbook example. So we have our equation, and now they're saying the teacher needs to replace an average of 5 books each year. So use this equation to figure out the cost of those replacing 5 textbooks in 2009. Pause right here, see what you can do, okay? Hint, first find the cost of a textbook in 2009 and then multiply that by 5 to get the cost of 5 of them. When I worked through it here, I said, okay, so 2009 would be 4 years later, right? So 2009 would be 4 years after 2005. So I'm going to plug in a 4 here, and when I work through that math, I get $71.65 for the cost of the textbook. Once I do that, $71.65, I'm going to plug that in here. Sorry, that's a 7. That's bad handwriting. $71.65 for one book times 5 books, and that ends up being $358.25. So that's why I chose that for my answer. Alright, here is your homework. Feel free to go back, rewind if you need to hear anything again, pause and stop, do whatever you need to do, play stuff again if you need to re-see an example if you've got questions about stuff. Also, please feel free to ask questions. These videos should not be a replacement for teaching, but just a help for you guys. So please ask questions if you're stuck on anything, and I'll go through more examples or redo these examples in class, whatever you need. Alright, good luck with the homework, and let me know if you've got questions.